You ever wake up thinking you're just going to have a peaceful day and end up dodging HOA drama from the sky? That's exactly what happened to me the morning Karen tried to ruin my weekend. It was 6:30 a.m. Lake fog still rolling low across the water, and I was packing my tackle box, humming to myself, ready for the perfect fishing trip. The kind where you don't check your phone, don't care about the world, just you, your rod, and the water. Then came the sound I dreaded. The screech of Karen's voice cutting through the calm like a siren. "Excuse me? You can't fish here? This is private property." Now, for context, my family has owned a cabin on this lake for 20 years. I've fished here since I was 10. But Karen? She moved in 3 months ago and decided she was queen of the lake. She stomped out in her robe, holding a mug that said, "Ho life." Her dog yapped at her feet as she pointed toward my dock, like she was sentencing me to exile. "I'll be reporting this to the association," she said. "You're violating noise ordinances and whatever fishing law applies here." I tried to stay calm. "Karen, I'm just fishing. It's 6:30. The fish don't even know I'm here yet." But she wasn't having it. "You think this is funny? We have rules. No motorized boats before 8 a.m., no guests, and no, what did they call it, excessive recreational activity." I swear she made that last part up. She marched off, phone in hand, snapping pictures of my boat like she was collecting evidence for the FBI. At that moment, I decided, if she wanted to make this personal, I'd show her what excessive recreational activity really looked like. Because I had something she didn't know about. See, my buddy Jake is a licensed helicopter pilot, and if Karen wanted to act like she owned the lake, maybe it was time to remind her the sky was still free. So that night, I made a call that would turn the next morning into the most unforgettable scene this neighborhood had ever witnessed. Let's just say, the fish weren't the only ones flopping around in shock. The second I hung up the phone with Jake, I knew there was no turning back. If Karen wanted to play HOA cop, then I was about to give her a show the entire lake would remember. Jake was all in. "You're telling me she called the HOA overfishing?" He laughed. "Oh, we're doing this. What time are we landing?" "7 sharp," I said, "right beside her dock." We spent the next day planning everything to the smallest detail. I'd act casual, pretend I was just setting up for another normal morning on the lake. Meanwhile, Jake would fly in, low and steady, right over the water. I wasn't trying to scare her, just to make a point. Saturday morning came. The lake was glass smooth, sunlight sparkling like diamonds across the surface. I packed my gear, cooler, and bait, but this time, there was something extra in the air. A mix of revenge and anticipation. At 6:55 a.m., I walked to my dock with a coffee in hand, pretending not to notice the curtains twitching in Karen's living room. She was watching. She always was. And right on cue, the distant thump of rotor blades filled the air. Whump! 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 Karen's curtains snapped open completely. Her face appeared, eyes wide, mouth open, phone already in her hand. Jake's helicopter came gliding over the trees like something out of a movie, sleek, black, with the morning sun reflecting off its sides. The sound shook the water, sending ripples toward every dock on the shoreline. "Morning, neighbor!" I shouted toward Karen's deck, giving her a friendly wave. Her jaw dropped. "What is that?" "You can't! That's illegal!" The look on her face when the helicopter gently hovered above my dock, priceless. Jake lowered it just enough for me to grab the skid and secure it with a line. The gust of wind sent Karen's lawn chairs tumbling and her dog barking hysterically. I couldn't help but grin. "Just picking up a buddy for some fishing?" I yelled over the blades. She started recording, of course. Shouting something about airspace violations and calling the police. Jake just leaned out and shouted, "Beautiful morning for a flight." I loaded my fishing gear inside while Karen stood frozen in disbelief, phone shaking in her hand. The whole neighborhood was watching now. People stepping onto porches, pointing, laughing, cheering. Then Jake lifted off again, slow and smooth, hovering right over her dock as we rose higher above the lake. And I swear, I could see her mouthing the words, "I'm calling the HOA." I looked down and smiled. "Oh, Karen, you're going to need more than the HOA this time." By the time we landed on the far side of the lake, my phone was already blowing up. Missed calls, text messages, and even a few voicemails, all from the HOA president, neighbors, and of course Karen. Jake laughed as he powered down the engine. "She's probably calling the Coast Guard right now." I checked the messages. Karen's voice note played loud through the speaker. "You are in serious violation of community airspace laws. I have reported you to the HOA, local authorities, and possibly the FAA." The way she said possibly told me she had absolutely no idea who she'd actually called. We spent the next few hours doing what I'd originally planned. Fishing. The water was calm, the morning air perfect, and not a single HOA rule could reach us out there. I caught 3 bass, Jake caught 1, And we laughed the whole time about how Karen's probably staging a neighborhood protest. But when we flew back that afternoon, that's when things got interesting. As we descended toward the dock, I noticed a big, "No trespassing, show enforced" sign planted in the grass beside my property line. There she was, Karen, standing with her hands on her hips, sunglasses on, lips pressed so tight it looked painful. She waved a clipboard like it was a sword. "You can't land here. This is restricted airspace. The HOA has rules about aircraft." Jake leaned out the door. "The HOA doesn't control the sky, ma'am." That didn't go over well. Karen started taking photos again, her hair whipping around from the rotor wash. Then came the sprinkler system. She turned them on, trying to soak us. But the wind from the helicopter just blew the water right back at her. She screamed, shielding her face as her own sprinklers drenched her head to toe. Jake was laughing so hard he could barely steady the aircraft. "Dude, she looks like she's in a hurricane." I yelled down, "Karen, maybe next time just ask before you start a war." But she wasn't done. The next day I got a letter, official, HOA stationery, claiming I'd violated community peace and tranquility standards, whatever that meant. They wanted a hearing. They wanted fines. They wanted an apology. But what they didn't know was that I had footage. Jake had recorded everything from his cockpit camera. The landing, the yelling, the sprinklers, all of it. And I had a feeling the internet would love watching HOA Karen versus helicopter. Because when she tried to take me down, she forgot one important rule. Never start a fight with someone who knows how to make a scene. The hearing was scheduled for Saturday morning at the community clubhouse. The same day, I'd planned another fishing trip. Figures. I showed up anyway, wearing my lucky fishing hat, a calm smile on my face, and Jake right beside me, holding a small flash drive like it was a secret weapon. Inside, the HOA board sat around a long table looking way too serious for a group of neighbors arguing over a lake. Karen sat at the end, arms crossed, a thick folder in front of her labeled evidence. The HOA president, a soft-spoken man named Bill, cleared his throat. "We're here today to discuss complaints regarding excessive noise, disturbance, and the aviation incidents over Lake Birchwood." Jake leaned over and whispered, "Aviation incidents? Bro, they made it sound like a military operation." Karen wasted no time. She slammed her folder down and started. "This man," she pointed at me dramatically, "landed a helicopter beside my dock. He endangered property, animals, and disrupted the peace of our entire community." The room went silent. A few people nodded, but most just looked curious. I waited for her to finish her rant, then calmly said, "Actually, Karen, it wasn't your dock. It was mine. And if you'd like, I can show everyone exactly what happened." I nodded to Jake, who plugged in the flash drive. The TV on the wall flickered to life, and there it was, the footage. The helicopter lowering smoothly over the water, my calm wave, Karen screaming about airspace law, then the part where she turned on her sprinklers and soaked herself. The room erupted in laughter. Even Bill, the HOA president, covered his mouth to hide a grin. Karen's face turned red. This is an invasion of privacy," she yelled. "Actually," Jake said, still smiling, "it's a recording from my aircraft. Perfectly legal." Bill finally spoke up. "Karen, I think we've seen enough. There's no rule against aircraft, and frankly, this looks more like a misunderstanding," Karen sputtered, trying to regain control. "You can't just let him get away with this." Bill sighed. "I think we can all agree the matter's settled. No violations." She shot up from her chair, fuming. "You people are unbelievable." Then she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. The second she was gone, the room broke into laughter again. Someone even clapped. Bill looked at me, still chuckling. "Just try to keep the helicopters to a minimum, okay?" "Can't promise anything," I said with a grin. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Karen didn't lose quietly, and the look she gave me as I walked past her car in the parking lot said it all. She was already plotting her next move. I thought the HOA hearing would be the end of it. But with Karen, it never really ends, does it? A week later, she put up a giant banner on her fence that read, "Respect community rules. No aircraft. No trouble." She even added an inflatable duck with a "No helicopters" sign taped to it, floating right in front of my dock. It was like she'd turned passive aggressiveness into a full-blown art form. Jake saw it first when he flew over one afternoon. He radioed me. "Bro," she made props. Actual props. That's when I decided it was time for one final, peaceful reminder of who really owned the sky. I planned it carefully. No rules broken this time. No landings, no loud engines near her house. Just one epic message she couldn't ignore. The following Saturday morning, as the sun rose, Jake and I took off again. This time, the helicopter carried a massive banner that read, "Gone fishing, HOA approved." As we approached the lake, people came out of their houses, pointing and laughing. Even Bill, the HOA president, stood on his porch sipping coffee with a grin. Karen, of course, was already outside, phone in hand, shouting into it like she was calling air traffic control. We hovered high above her property, far enough not to disturb a single shingle on her roof, and circled the lake once. The banner flapped proudly behind us. Jake switched on the loudspeaker. "Good morning, Lake Birchwood. Just reminding everyone that the lake is for everyone." You could hear the laughter from the docks below. A few neighbors even waved up at us. But Karen? She was fuming. She pointed at us, shaking her fists like a cartoon villain. Then came the best part. Her inflatable duck, the one with the "no helicopters" sign, broke loose in the wind and floated away across the lake. Slowly spinning, it drifted right toward my dock, bumping softly against the wood. I landed my fishing line, reeled it in gently, and pulled the duck ashore. I set it beside my tackle box, gave it a pat, and smiled for the camera. Later that day, I posted the footage online under the title, "HOA Karen versus Helicopter, the final flight." Within hours, it went viral. Comments poured in from around the world, everyone cheering for the fisherman, who refused to bow to HOA madness. And as for Karen, she took down her banners, quietly, without a word. Since then, the lake's been peaceful again. No yelling, no drama. Just me, my fishing rod, and a quiet sky. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about fighting back. It's about flying higher.